Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling one of the most common headaches in medical billing, the service not covered denial. You know that feeling, right? You get a denial back that just says service not covered, and you're kind of stuck. Well, you're in the right place, because over the next few minutes, we are going to turn that confusion into a super clear step-by-step plan. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll break down the core problem. Then, we'll get into the most important question you can ask. After that, we'll hunt down the root cause, figure out how to fix it, and finally, talk about when it's actually okay to bill the patient. So what is a service not covered denial, really? Well, at its most basic, it just means the insurance company is saying, nope, we're not paying for this. But here's the tricky part. The why isn't always clear just from looking at the denial. It feels like a roadblock, for sure, but it's one we can definitely navigate. Okay, so the first thing to remember is don't panic. And whatever you do, don't just resubmit the claim and cross your fingers. That's not going to work. The real solution requires a little bit of investigation, and it all kicks off with one super important question. All right, let's get to it. This is the big one, the one question that changes everything. Seriously, the answer to this is going to dictate your entire game plan from here on out. Think of it like a fork in the road for your whole investigation. So when you get that insurance rep on the phone, you have to ask them this, and you got to be direct. Is this service not covered under the patient's plan, or is it not covered under the provider's plan? Phrasing it exactly like that is so important because it immediately tells you which of two very different paths you need to go down. And this is where everything splits. If they say it's an issue with the patient's plan, well, then you know the problem is with their specific benefits package. But if they say it's an issue with the provider's plan, that points the finger right back at your own setup, something to do with the provider's contract. Totally different problems, right? So once you know which road to take, patient or provider, now you can really start digging to find out what's actually going on. This is where we get to the bottom of it, the why behind the no. Okay, let's say the rep says, yup, it's a patient plan issue. What does that mean? It means that the specific procedure, or maybe even the medical condition it's for, is just flat out not a covered benefit in that person's insurance policy. It's an exclusion. Simple as that.
Now, on the flip side, what if it's a provider plan issue? This usually points to some kind of administrative hiccup. And the most common culprit? The service just isn't listed on the provider's fee schedule with that insurance company. It's a classic contractual problem.
All right, so you figured out the likely cause. Now what? Let's walk through the exact action plan to get this thing resolved. Think of this as your basic checklist. Step 1, obviously, is to call the carrier. But before you even dial, make sure you have all your ducks in a row. Provider info, patient info, claim details, all of it. Then you ask those key questions. And here's a pro tip. Never, and I mean never hang up that phone without a call reference number and the rep's name. You've got to document everything. And here it is. This is basically your script for that call. You'll want to confirm the claim details first. Then you hit them with that big question, patient plan or provider plan. From there, you dig deeper depending on what they say. And you absolutely have to ask that last question. Can we bill the patient for this service? Get that answer on the recorded line. Okay, this leads us to the million-dollar question, right? Who is ultimately responsible for this bill? This is the final decision, and it's one you just can't afford to get wrong. So when is it okay to send that bill to the patient? You have to be really careful here because the rules are super specific. Making the wrong call could lead to some pretty serious compliance issues. The good news is the answer comes directly from the info you just got from that insurance rep. As a general rule, it's pretty straightforward. If the insurance carrier told you that the service isn't a covered benefit under the patient's individual plan, then yeah, the financial responsibility usually falls to the patient. But, and this is a huge but, there is one critical exception. If you remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it this. This is the part you absolutely cannot forget. I'm going to say this again, just to be crystal clear. You cannot bill the patient if they have Medicaid or a Medicaid-affiliated HMO plan. It doesn't matter if it's not a covered service. For these patients, you just can't do it. The provider usually has to write off that balance. So, let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. First, always ask, is it the patient's plan or the provider's plan? Second, pinpoint the real cause. Is it a non-covered service or just a fee schedule mix-up? And third, always remember that big exception. You can bill the patient unless they have Medicaid. Got it? And that leaves us with one final thought. Now that you've got the tools to master these denials, what's the next step? How can you get ahead of them? Start looking for patterns. Could a small change in your process prevent these from happening in the first place? Because let's be honest, resolving denials is great, but preventing them, that's the real win.